When you're writing your screenplay, you don't want to have to think about formatting. Final Draft 11 automatically paginates and formats your script to industry standards, allowing writers to focus on what they do best, writing. Final Draft, used on 95% of all productions, contains many features that make your writing process easier and more efficient. Final Draft, the #1 selling screenwriting software worldwide, also offers the Final Draft mobile app for iPhone and iPad, making creativity truly portable. Bring your story to life with Final Draft 11. It all starts with a script.
Okay, so now we're going live. First, I'll do the intro. Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to this discussion on experimental as a genre in cinema, for which we have the filmmakers of Void and Death Offers Life, which was screened right before this discussion with us at CAFF. Cineval Annual Film Festival aims to open up new avenues of thought and interest in cinema with such discussions. In the panel with us, we have Paulo Emilio Schultz, who has a BA in Audiovisual from Centro Universitario, CENAC, in Sao Paulo. He develops projects in areas like animation, photography, and physical computing. Bruno Wolinski is a Brazilian filmmaker. His interest in filmmaking started as a kid, and his favorite areas are editing and animation. Paulo and Bruno are the co-directors of Void. We also have with us Camilla Zahn. She is a young disabled filmmaker from Brazil with an undergrad in 2019, usually found in the roles of assistant director and producer, and also as a screenwriter. She directed a short film in 2020 called Half-Life, made exclusively in her house by herself, reflecting on COVID-19 and its effect on spaces we inhabit. She is the assistant director and co-producer of Void. We also have Gabriel Colige. Gabriel is audio engineer who has studied music since the age of 12 with the Berkeley method. As an audio-visual undergrad from CENAC in 2019, he has worked as an academic assistant on sound design. He was the audio supervisor, editor, and the mixer of the film Void. From Death Offers Life, we have Madhu NR. Madhu NR hails from Trivandrum, Kerala. He has been writing for 30 years and has published 2 Malayalam novels as well as 2 English books. The film Death Offers Life is based on a story, Vincent van Gogh Meets Death, from his book Glimpses of Life Through the Cobweb. He has also written the screenplay for the film. I welcome you all to this discussion. And now to the experimental genre. So, to define a genre that comes into existence by breaking rules and breaking expectations, we must be acutely aware of the spaces that our art inhabits, which are reinvigorated and recontextualized into a different creative space where the experimental cinema finds itself. So, with this, I'd like to pose the first question, which is to the team of Void, whoever likes to answer first. So, how do you define the genre of experimental? Like, what does experimental mean for you, and how does it inform your film Void?
Someone wants to go?
No. The experimentation of our film comes from experimentation itself. We don't know we are actually doing an experimental movie until we actually doing. One of the things we put the, how can I say, the not having talk, the people not talking in the film. That is something we put for how can I say, it's technical issue. We are that make the film much more easier to make, not having lines to say. And it brings something that the referential movie we use, Limite, from Mario Peixoto, brings together that poetic that film brings along. So we can approach much more the sensations, the feelings in the movie when the people don't say anything. You have to feel the film. So I don't know.
Yeah. This was actually something I was going to ask you too, because the two main choices in terms of form in your film is the use of animation, the way it is used, and using animation and also keeping it silent. Of course, the film is in space, and like in any film set in space, the silence itself plays a huge part. And but to use the freedom that animation gives a filmmaker to influence their form, and then constricting yourself to silence to make the filmmaking purely visual matters. So, what was the decision of your team regarding that? Like, how does it influence Void as a film?
I would like to say about silence that when something is silent doesn't mean there is no sound, and I think that was the concept of our movie in the aspects of audio, because despite of we don't have dialogue, there is always a texture of sound coming along that creates an environment and creates ambience in the scenario, and that is a concept mixed with our music that is always present, the same music with different touches. This concept of leitmotiv.
Yeah.
And I think it's that. Yeah.
So in terms of leitmotiv, that so to be an audio engineer in a film where the music and the audio itself has to be very subtle, you have to work in a minimalistic way. So how was that experience?
We had to be subtle with our choices. We experiment. This experimental itself, like Bruno said, it was in everything, in art, in direction, in design, in sound. Every aspect of our film is experimental, because we tried every type of combination that was possible. We have like 4 days at a studio only for recording sounds of different types, different instruments, a flute, a violin, a cello, a piano, and stuff like that. So we tried every combination until we get where we wanted to get.
So now let's on to
The other thing I can say about the silence is for the production, because when you don't have lines, you don't have to record them first, then animate above the lines. So we have a freedom for that. So you can think at the same time the sound and the image. So one was constructing another. So that make the production of the film much more easy for us.
Thank you for your response. So now I'd like to ask Madhu a question. So, as an experienced author, your engagement with the form of storytelling in terms of moving it to script writing in cinema has a very unique touch to it. So how do you see your story's transformation into a short film in terms of the form? Like how do you transform your short story into this film and what happens in between?
First, I wrote the story. As you said, it was published in this book in 2015. Every writer, when he writes a story, he visualizes it. Simultaneously, he may be thinking of making it a film, but filmmaking is an expensive subject which we can't afford. So there was no idea of making a film from this story. It was just an accident. One of my colleagues, he had made a short film and he sent me the link and I asked him, how can I contribute towards it? So he told that comedy is the most difficult subject. So actually I wrote one, but I never sent it to him. I sent this story to him. I emailed it to him. It's a very short story. He liked it and he wanted to act as Van Gogh. But there was a condition that no one would come to finance this. So I should contribute 20% of the cost. He would contribute 40% and the other person, that would contribute 40%. But that project didn't take off. Later, I took I gave the idea that I shall become the sole producer. But after that, the discussion went off track. There was some dispute and I had to change the whole team. But I stayed with the story. And the early director and this director, Sairabas, when they heard the story, they said that this was a festival subject and there's stuff in this. Maybe not go popular, but to get some result from festival circuit. Actually, the idea of making this into a film came from a third person. And everything, there's artist behind the artist and art pushes the artist to do things. Sometimes it clicks, sometimes it goes off track. This one, due to God's grace or the art and work of the entire team, the director and the entire team, they could make an excellent film from this story. The film is more engaging than the story. I would say it is like that. Because no one read the story. But the film has gone places. It has been selected by you. It's a great prestige for us.
That's not actually what you hear authors say a lot, that the film turned out as well as the story or as like more engaging than the story. So that's rather interesting. So I had another question for you because like Death Offers Life, it has a very existential question for an artist at its core. The question that Death asks of Van Gogh. So the choice of Van Gogh as your artist in that film, because like that question can stand for a lot of people. The art living out the artist and how the art is what the artist lives through after their life, and so much more that you pack in that one single question. So, like, how do you see the engagement of that question with Van Gogh, and why choose Van Gogh for that question?
Actually, if you ask an artist how this idea came to you, it may be difficult for him to answer because it's a transformation. First, an idea comes, then it gets transformed. It, as the present language, it mutates into different types of things, and you can't go back to the beginning. If you ask me how the story came, I can just say that I was standing in the terrace of my rented house, and when I was looking at the trees, each tree has different type of green leaves. Just an attraction of nature. From there, I got this idea about the pathetic life of Van Gogh. He never got anything from his art, but once he died, his art became famous and all the holders became rich, made fortune out of it. Van Gogh is a famous specimen. There are many unknown artists who are not recognized. during his lifetime, but after death, his heart clicked. So this irony was the core of the story, the spine of the story, the lifeline.
Yeah, thank you, Madhu. So, as we were discussing previously about void, I would like to come to the question of relativity, because like that part really interested me about your film. So, how do you explore the concept of relativity? And like watching the film, I was also thinking in terms of experimental cinema, like because experimental cinema comes into its own in terms of audiences' expectations and the expectations of the form itself, like what is standard and what is experimental. So isn't there an element of relativity in that as well? Like that's something the use of relativity in your film made me think about. So how do you explore that concept?
The question to me or void?
To the team of void.
To me.
No, sir, to the team of void. Camilla and Paulo.
Okay.
About the expectation of the audience, we tried, because we are very at the beginning of the process. We are very attached to the film limit. That is our reference. So we try to make a movie that can talk with Limite from Mario Peixoto, but not attached too much attached to Limite. So we try to construct a film that everyone can see and have some sentiment, some feeling, some sensation when you see the movie. So it's not mandatory that you see, that you can see, that you see all the reference we put there. It's not necessary to understand the film to feel the film. I don't know. What's the other question you asked? Sorry.
I was asking about how like you explore the concept of relativity in the relativity of time and how it goes on.
Again, was the reference movie we saw, because Limite, he plays too much with time. He dilates the time in the movie, so he has 1 hour, 130 hours. So, but it appears to be much more. So the time is complex. I don't know how to explain this very well, but
I think the time itself expands, like a minute seems like more than a minute. Is something like Tarkovsky said and worked in his movies. We try to do something like that, and without dialogue, we lost the track of time. With loneliness, and that all that space, we lost the track of time itself. Yeah, and that's the main question, I think, about when asked about time in Void.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. So, Madhu, I'd like to pose to you a similar sort of question about like how does audiences' expectations and how do the expectations of a certain kind of form inform your film? Because if we see Death of His Life as an experimental film, as it has turned from a story to a film, like sometimes we feel that what may be considered experimental cinema in its earlier form as a story may not be experimental short story itself. So what is your comment on that?
The thing is that we try to make a good film. It genre, what we devised was drama or narrative. But in Bombay on Chai International Film Festival, we got the award for the best experimental film. That's when we found out. Then I had a talk with my son. Where does this experimental category fit here? Death has been portrayed in many films. The famous one is the Seventh Seal of Ingmar Bergman. So that is not an experiment. So maybe when we cast Van Gogh as the character, that may be seen as an experiment. But there are films about Van Gogh. But in this case, people saw some correlation that death coming and speaking to an artist and is not accepting the offer and he's going with death gracefully. He's not fighting death. The death says to him that you have done no wrong in your life. So I think the experimental category, the best example for experimental film is Tenet or Memento, Christopher Nolan. He's the best example. He makes it in an entertaining way without compromising his ideas. So the story or the film, even both may be experimental, or if we are going to make a film in experimental way, you can twist the story and make some experiment with the story and convert it into a film. It should be made in an entertaining way, otherwise people would be left with mysteries in the film. What is this? What is that? Many questions would be asked.
What actually I find the most interesting about your answer, like when you say that while you were making the film, you were not actually making an experimental film, but when you won that award at a film festival, it was for making an experimental film. So, like that makes you think like how someone's native sensibilities in a way can turn out to seem experimental for someone else. Like something like that, South American people will be very familiar with because a lot of South American literature gets called magic realism. So, like someone's native sensibilities being called experimental is
It's the viewer who sees the art. What type
yeah.
of art is it? The person of Void just said that actually they didn't know that it was an experiment they were making. So later it is devised as an experimental film or something like that.
So, okay, just an open question to all of you. So, does a film become an experimental film because the creator is experimenting, or does it become an experimental film when it reaches a festival and it gets branded as an experimental film? Like, what's your take on that?
That's an interesting question. Actually, what happened in Death of Us Life is being treated as an experimental film is an accident. We never planned it. Perhaps we may be taking another film, or if we are going to take another film, let us take an experimental film, and we are planning it from the beginning itself. Sometimes, if it is accepted as an experimental film, we can say, oh, okay, we too are planning like this, and it happened. But in Death of Us Life, we never planned. We just planned a film to make a good film, and I asked the director, you should give me a good product of art. And he did it. That's what happened.
I think the film has a life of his own. So when we finish the movie, the movie will say what he is. So I don't know. When we end it, well, it's an experimentation movie. So
Yeah, sometimes we at the beginning, we didn't have this idea, oh, let's make an experimental movie. We just wanted to make a movie that would reference limit and would we bring these questions about that, isolation and fear and time. And I think experimental films, much like time, they have this really hard concept to grasp, because they can be very subtle and very defined to how you're feeling. If I watch our movie today and I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry, I'm going to feel something. And if I watch this movie later in another mood, I'm going to feel another thing. And when we were through the middle of the process, when we realized, well, we need to make some cuts and let some scenes go and change some things during the process. And we had no idea this was going to be an experimental movie until we saw it on the big screen and we felt it, the whole power of the movie. And we were like, whoa, okay, this is very experimental, but it wasn't a pre-concept thing.
I think also, can you hear me? Okay. I think also the along the process, we were feeling that this was going that way of experimentation. We tried so many different things, and the more we experiment, the more we like it. So I think it was part of the process. And at the end, what we wanted was a film to be felt, not to be thinking. And I think that was what we wanted.
Wonderful. So just a heads up, like if I'm looking down this way, I'm actually looking at the audience questions because there are many questions in the live chat. So I will try to incorporate them into your discussion. So one question that I got here is that where do you see like your future projects and everything, and how do you see like the sensibilities of these films, the experimental sensibility that we have been talking about and problematizing here? So where do you see this going as you go further in your careers?
Sorry, can you repeat? I didn't understand very well.
Yeah, the question is about like basically like the experimental elements that are explored in these films. So how do you plan to keep them going in your future projects? Like what are the takeaways?
My future projects, I don't know. I don't have no idea what I'm going to do next. So
okay.
I think one thing we could bring from this movie to others about this process is to not think so much, because at some point in the process of making the movie, we got too caught up in our own heads with thousands of ideas. And when we let go of some preconceptions and some, oh, we have to do the movie like this, we have to do it like that, and we just tried. We look at each other and said, okay, let me try to do this, or let me make this cut to see how it works. And it really worked better every time we did it. So in next projects, we could just go with this confidence. Trust the process you're doing. Trust your movie. Like Gabriel said, the movie, Bruno said, I think, the movie is going to have a life of its own, and it's going to say to you what needs to be done. When you're watching it during the edition, or maybe during, in our case, during the animation process, we are always changing the movie. We start with one idea and we start to cut and change ideas and let go of some things. And being able to let go of some things that may, or some scenes, some moments that you think are very important and sometimes they are not to the movie is another thing, because it only makes your movie better and it makes it grow and blossom like it wants to be.
Okay, thanks for the answer. I'd love to keep this discussion going, but like we are a little short on time. So I'd pose one final question for your closing remarks. So what would you suggest to, this is to the team of Void. So what would you suggest to young filmmakers like you who are uh, interested in experimenting with the form? Like, as someone who has not much experience in making films and then wants to experience the form itself. So what would you suggest them?
I guess allow yourself to experiment things, and things will go wrong along the process, and is a part. It becomes a part of the process of its own. So our film died and reborn many times in many shapes, and the script, the sound, the animation itself. We changed 5 times the program we are sketching it. So allow yourself to experiment things and different things, and that's acho que that is the part of the experimental. So that's what I would say.
I would like to say, don't be afraid of trying. People became afraid of experiment, and they are attached to ideas. People don't let go ideas. They insist until it's like they first thought. So like everything in life, ideas change, and it's part of the process. Like Camilla said, you need to trust your process, and you need to trust on what possibilities you don't expect that will be better than you first thought. I think something like that.
I would say as well to watch as many movies and short features and clips and every video you can on YouTube about experimental, not about the form itself, but so you can have references, so you can look like, I don't know, like you watch Void and you say, okay, I want to make a movie that goes in this direction. So you can maybe try to talk with the creator or watch the movie a lot of times to try to understand the things you like on the movie and the things you don't like. So you have like you have like a pedal, so you can hold yourself while you're swimming in this ocean of experimentalism.
Thank you so much for your advice. So final remarks for Madhu. So,
Okay.
what would you suggest to a writer, a screenwriter or a story writer itself, who wants to write on an abstract idea, like you did, having an abstract idea or abstract question, and how do you build it into a story? So what would you suggest them who wants to do that?
One thing is that a short film, or if it is a feature also, experimental films may not get many viewers. So we have to market it globally. So the subject should be acceptable to the global audience also. So the subject you are selecting should be unique, something which you can present it in different ways, or where the viewer can find out many meanings in it. They find it entertaining or They should not say that this is a boring one or something like that. And the subject selection should later become a written project where the director and the writer should be in perfect relation, and they should work it out, and the director should get a firm hold on the script, and then only he should go to the filmmaking. If everyone has an understanding about the script, then the result would be good.
Okay. So with this note, I thank you all for coming for this discussion. It has been really fruitful. It has been very informative. To the audience, you can watch Void as well as Death Offers Life on Vimeo for the next 1 week. You can get all the information in the description of this panel discussion on YouTube. So next up, we have a discussion on travel filmmaking, which will start at 6. Thank you once again for coming, the team of Void. And
Thank you very much. We are very glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a great honor.